Oliver Evans, scholar, writer, poet, and critic, was the first individual to write in depth about Anaïs Nin's work, first with a 1962 article in Prairie Schooner, and then in 1968 with a comprehensive book-length study simply called Anaïs Nin. While most students of Nin's writing find Evans' book valuable, Anaïs Nin herself disparaged it severely to friends and colleagues and even listed Evans as one of the biggest disappointments of her life in her final diary, A Joyous Transformation. But that's a story for another episode. Today, we will listen to the first part of the taped interview with Anaïs Nin at her Los Angeles home in the spring of 1965, a year before her published diary would bring her international fame. Here, Nin explains to Evans how her first work of fiction, House of Incest, arguably her finest and yet her most mysterious writing, came to be.
The composition or the organization of House of Incest was so difficult because I had written it as you write poems. Mm-hmm. I wrote one thing after a certain dream image, made a whole surrealist page. I had the part about the Come With Me to My Island, which you call the Ode. Mm-hmm. I had the part about the minerals, turning into mineral, and almost all of them were written as separate fragments, yes, as poems. And then I began to struggle with the continuity. Where was the continuity? Just as and you asked me.
Some of them were actual dreams, weren't they?
Some were actual dreams, images. And they began really when I was reading Rimbaud, and I wrote the part which is now in the middle of the book. So when I began, I didn't know what was going to be the beginning of the book, what dream. Just as you have, if you put together a great deal of dreams, you don't really know how to weave them.
That's right.
And it gave me a great deal of trouble to weave some associative process. What would be the experience, for instance, where would the mineralized, freezing experience come in? And then it occurred to me that belonged to the character of Jeanne.
Yes.
But it was not constructed beforehand. It was very difficult. And then some of the states, I was trying to have a consistency between the kind of anxieties each one would have.
Yeah.
That was my only consistency. Mm-hmm. I try not to have, the narrator would have a certain kind of fears, and certainly the paralytic would have different ones, and Jeanne had different ones again.
Mm-hmm. But there was a relation also, wasn't there?
Yes, but the construction
was very difficult. Otherwise it would not have been incestuous.
No, there were relations. Yeah. But to do it by an association of states was not easy, and I didn't know, for instance, I didn't know what plot it had. I didn't know what would be the outcome. And then as cumulatively there became descriptions of being in prison, the natural outcome would have been, will they be able to free themselves, and how, you know?
But they don't in the book.
They don't. No, there's only an intimation that there is an opening to this cell-like existence. But it was exactly like a puzzle. I had some pieces beautifully written, perfect, and others I didn't know where they belonged.
The problem was to fit it into
and I was really letting a kind of an automatic writing. I was letting myself, every image that came up.
Well, actually, this is the way a poem, an individual poem of any length, writes itself too. You get images, and then you attempt to weave them together. Actually, it's finding what you are doing then is finding the logic which is really buried. You are not manufacturing a logic. You aren't artificially manufacturing a logic, but you are discovering or recovering the logic that presented itself in pieces to begin with. Don't you think?
Yes, no. Right. Yes.
Yeah. And I always feel that about a successful poem, that it was organized in my subconscious, and it was simply a question of recovering that the original logic, of the unconscious, the pattern, fulfilling the pattern that you had only been given a piece of, you see, and then when it's successful, you find all the pieces.
Yes, it's absolutely true that it comes like a submerged piece, and you have to reconstruct
bit by bit.
Yeah. And certainly I worked that way because some of the images I took from a dream.
Yes.
And then it was reading Rimbaud, really.
Yes.
Permitted me to just, very well, I will write this one down. I don't know why it is.
Would you say you were more influenced by by Rimbaud than by Lautréamont?
Yes, Lautréamont I didn't read till later. And I never understood it very well.
And what about
the
Mirbeau?
The Mirbeau, yes, but that's not a work of literature, really.
That and the Rimbaud then was the biggest.
I really wouldn't consider that a work of literature. We write it as a sensational thing.
But it's quite exciting.
It is.
Yes, that's a wonderful book.
It's not.
It's a curiosity.
It is a curiosity, and I read it recently, and I can see why at that time it seemed very strong.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for future episodes in which Anaïs Nin continues discussing House of Incest with Oliver Evans.